I knew about my son-in-law's plan to rob me, so I prepared a glitter trap and waited. The glitter bomb in my safe went off exactly as planned. My name is Nicholas Watson, and I'm 71 years old. For 3 months, I watched my son-in-law, Derek, circle my house like a vulture, convincing my daughter that her grieving father had lost his mind. He thought stealing my home would be easy. After all, what could one old widower do against a younger man with plans? But Derek made one crucial mistake. He forgot that some of us built our careers on staying 3 steps ahead of people exactly like him. So I prepared my own trap and waited. The night Derek broke into my house, hunting for the property deed to my $850,000 home, he got more than he bargained for. UV reactive glitter coated his hands, his clothes, his face. Security cameras captured every second, and the deed he was desperately searching for, it was never where he thought it would be. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. This is the story of how underestimating a retired lawyer cost my son-in-law everything he thought he'd steal from me. 8 months ago, my wife Margaret died from cancer. 43 years of marriage, gone in 6 brutal months of treatments that didn't work. The house felt enormous without her. 4,200 square feet of memories echoing with silence. Derek Hamilton, my daughter Sarah's husband, started visiting more often after the funeral. At first, I thought he was being considerate, checking on the old man, making sure I was eating properly, taking out the trash I kept forgetting about. I was wrong. "Dad, you're looking thin," Sarah would say during their Sunday visits. "Are you sure you're managing okay in this big house?" Derek would nod along, his eyes scanning my home office, the kitchen counters, anywhere important papers might be kept. "It's a lot of maintenance for one person, Nicholas. Margaret used to handle so much of the day-to-day stuff." They weren't wrong. I had been letting things slide. Mail piled up on Margaret's desk. I ate cereal for dinner 3 nights a week. The garden she loved was turning wild without her careful attention. But I noticed other things, too. Derek asking casual questions about my property taxes. $18,500 annually? That's steep for someone on a fixed income. He'd shake his head sympathetically. "Have you thought about downsizing? Somewhere easier to manage?" Sarah jumping in with support. "Maybe one of those nice senior communities? You'd have people around, activities." Derek's truck parked across the street Tuesday mornings when I went to my doctor appointments. Same truck, same spot, 3 weeks running. When I mentioned it, he laughed it off. Riverside Heights is beautiful for jogging. I like the quiet streets. But Derek Hamilton wasn't the jogging type. The questions got more pointed. How did property transfers work? Was there paperwork involved? Did I keep important documents at the bank or at home? "Just curious about estate planning," he'd say. "Sarah and I want to make sure we're prepared for the future." During a family dinner in October, Derek brought up inheritance taxes. It's criminal how much the government takes when property changes hands. There are legal ways to avoid that, though. Transfer ownership before death. Smart families do it all the time. Sarah nodded eagerly. "That makes sense, doesn't it, Dad? We're not asking for anything now, just being proactive." I played along, asked innocent questions. "How would something like that work? Would I still live here?" "Of course!" Derek leaned forward, excited. "You'd stay as long as you want. It's just paperwork. Protection for the family." That night, I made my first phone call to Robert Mitchell, my attorney colleague of 35 years. "Nick, good to hear from you," Robert said. "How are you holding up?" "I need some advice. Hypothetically, if someone wanted to transfer property to avoid taxes, what would they need?" "The original deed, mainly. Property records from the county clerk. Bank documentation showing clear title." "Why do you ask?" "Just wondering. Can you do me a favor? Put my deed in your office safe. I'll explain later." Derek started calling me forgetful. "Dad, you asked me that same question yesterday," Sarah would say gently. "About the taxes, remember?" I hadn't asked anything twice, but they needed me to be confused. Needed me to be the grieving widower who couldn't handle his own affairs. So I gave them what they wanted. Let my beard grow scraggly. Wore the same shirt 2 days in a row. Asked Derek to explain simple things about home maintenance. "Poor guy," I heard him tell Sarah in the kitchen. "It's like he's just fading away. Maybe this is the right time to help him make some decisions." But I was making decisions, just not the ones Derek expected. I installed a security system, told them it was for my peace of mind as a single homeowner. They bought it completely. The weakness they saw in me, it was about to become Derek's biggest problem. Let me tell you what Derek Hamilton was really trying to steal. My house sits on Elm Street in Riverside Heights, Connecticut. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, built in 1979 when mortgage rates were 14%, and Margaret and I scraped together every penny for the down payment. We bought it for $92,000. Today, it's appraised at $850,000. This isn't just about money, though Derek would never understand that. This house is where Margaret hung Christmas stockings for 40 years. Where Sarah took her first steps across hardwood floors, we refinished ourselves. Where Margaret planted rose bushes that still bloom every June, despite my clumsy attempts at gardening. Margaret's sewing room still smells like lavender sachets she made last spring. Her coffee cup sits in the sink because I can't bring myself to put it in the dishwasher. The kitchen window where she watched for deer every morning, that view is worth more than any appraisal. But Derek saw dollar signs and debt relief, because Derek Hamilton was drowning. I learned this from a simple Google search Sarah never thought her old father could manage. Hamilton Construction LLC had been struggling for 2 years. The Connecticut Better Business Bureau showed 11 complaints about unfinished work, 3 lawsuits for breach of contract. More damning, public records from Alpine Commercial Bank. Derek owed $400,000 on equipment loans. The foreclosure notice was filed in August, giving him 90 days to pay or lose everything. Sarah didn't know. Her pharmaceutical sales job paid well, but not well enough to save a failing construction business. Derek needed real money, fast money, my money. His plan was elegant in its simplicity. Get Nicholas to sign over the property deed for tax purposes. Sell the house to a fast cash investor, probably for $700,000 below market value, but quick. Use that money to pay his debts and start fresh somewhere else. And what would happen to the confused old man who no longer owned his own home? Senior communities have waiting lists, Derek had mentioned casually, but there are some really nice facilities that take immediate placement for people with immediate needs. Immediate needs, like having nowhere else to live. The cruelty was breathtaking. Derek would get my life savings and my house. I'd get a nursing home bed and visiting hours with my own daughter. Margaret and I had paid off the mortgage in 1998. 26 years of no debt, owning our home free and clear. Now Derek wanted to steal that security and leave me with nothing. But there was something Derek didn't know about my financial situation. My law practice specialized in real estate transactions for 35 years. I understood property law better than Derek understood his own scheme, and I still had friends in every courthouse, bank, and title company in Riverside County. More importantly, Margaret's life insurance policy paid out $400,000. Money Derek knew nothing about, sitting in a separate account at Riverside Trust Bank under James Bradford's management. I wasn't the vulnerable widower living on a fixed income that Derek assumed. I was a retired attorney with substantial assets, a sharp legal mind, and growing fury at my family's betrayal. The stakes for Derek were simple: steal my house or lose his business. The stakes for me were deeper. This was about respect, about whether a man could grieve his wife without vultures circling his remaining dignity, about whether Sarah would choose her inheritance over her integrity. But Derek had made one critical error in his calculations. He assumed grief made me weak. Grief doesn't make you weak. It clarifies what matters. And what matters is protecting what Margaret and I built together from people who see love as opportunity and family as profit. My house wasn't just worth $850,000. It was worth 43 years of shared dreams, Saturday morning pancakes, and Margaret's laughter echoing through rooms where Derek Hamilton would never belong. I'd rather burn it down than let him steal it, but I had a better plan. See, Derek researched property law for 3 months to figure out how to rob me. I practiced property law for 35 years. Let's see who understood the game better. The trap began at Thanksgiving dinner. Derek arrived early that Thursday, carrying a briefcase and wearing what I recognized as his serious business expression. Sarah looked nervous, fidgeting with her wedding ring the way she used to before piano recitals. "Dad, we need to talk about something important," she said as we sat down to Margaret's famous sweet potato casserole recipe. Derek's been doing research. Derek opened his briefcase with theatrical precision. Inside, printed articles about inheritance taxes, estate planning brochures, and a yellow legal pad covered in his handwriting. "Nicholas, I've been thinking about your situation," he began. "A house this size, property taxes climbing every year, maintenance costs. It's not sustainable long term." I played my part. "What do you mean?" "Well, when you pass away, God forbid, many years from now, Sarah will inherit this property. But the tax burden could be enormous. We could lose half the value to the IRS. Sarah leaned forward. "We don't want your money, Dad. We just want to protect what you've built." Derek's eyes gleamed. "There's a legal strategy called gifting with retained life estate. You transfer ownership now, avoid future taxes, but keep living here as long as you want." "How would that work exactly?" I asked, noting how Derek's confidence grew with each question. "Simple paperwork. We file a quitclaim deed, transfer title to Sarah, but you maintain full residence rights. Same house, same life, just better tax protection." I rubbed my forehead, looking confused. "That sounds complicated." "It's not," Derek insisted. "Happens all the time. Smart estate planning. What paperwork would I need?" Derek consulted his legal pad. "The original property deed, mainly. Title documents, proof of ownership. Do you keep those here or at a bank?" Perfect. He'd taken the bait. "Here somewhere. Margaret handled the filing system. Everything's probably in the office safe." Derek's pupils dilated slightly. Information acquired. Sarah reached across the table. "Dad, we're not pressuring you. Just think about it, okay?" I nodded slowly. "Can you explain it again? The tax part?" For the next hour, Derek repeated his pitch with growing excitement. Every question I asked revealed another detail about his research, his timeline, his urgency. "When would we need to do this?" I wondered aloud. "Well, sooner is better. Tax law could change, and if anything happened to you..." Derek trailed off meaningfully. "Nothing's happening to Dad," Sarah said quickly, "but Derek's right about being prepared." After dinner, I walked them to the door. Derek lingered, studying the hallway that led to my home office. "That safe you mentioned, is it a big one?" "Not really, just for documents Margaret thought were important." "Modern combination lock or old school key?" "Combination, 4 digits, Margaret's birthday." Derek smiled. "Smart system. Birth dates are easy to remember." As their car pulled away, I watched Derek's head turn back toward my house, memorizing the layout, planning his approach. That night, I called Detective Patricia O'Sullivan at Riverside Heights Police. "Nick, how are you holding up?" Patricia and I served together on the town's community safety board for 8 years. She knew Margaret, trusted my judgment, and understood exactly why I was calling. "Patricia, I need to report something that hasn't happened yet." "I'm listening." "My son-in-law is planning to break into my house to steal property documents. I want it on record before he tries." "You sure about this?" "Completely. I'm going to catch him in the act. But I want official documentation that this is entrapment, not breaking and entering on my part." Patricia's voice turned serious. "Nick, what exactly are you planning?" "Nothing illegal, just educational." The next day I visited Robert Mitchell's law office downtown. "Robert, remember that deed I asked you to safeguard?" "Of course, still in my safe." "Good. Don't tell anyone it's here. If anyone asks, anyone, the deed is at my house." Robert raised an eyebrow. "Care to explain?" "Family drama. I'll tell you everything soon. Just trust me for now." My final stop was Hardware Depot on Main Street. I bought a motion-activated trail camera, UV reactive powder, and a small wireless transmitter that would send alerts to my phone. The elderly clerk, Tom Peterson, looked puzzled. "Planning some late-season hunting, Nick?" "Something like that. Definitely hunting." That weekend, Derek called to check in. "How are you feeling, Nicholas? Still thinking about our conversation?" Yes, actually. I think you're right about the tax planning. A pause, then excitement in his voice. Really? That's great. When should we move forward? Let me find those documents first. Margaret's filing system is complicated. Take your time, but not too much time, you know? I knew exactly what he meant. 2 more weeks of careful setup. Derek's questions became more specific. Which nights did I go to bed early? Did I still take those sleeping pills Dr. Martinez prescribed? How often did I check the home security system? Each question confirmed what I already knew. Derek Hamilton was planning a break-in, and I was ready for him. Derek made his first mistake during our December 3rd phone call. Nicholas, I was thinking more about your situation. Have you considered what would happen if you couldn't make decisions anymore? Medical emergency, cognitive decline, that sort of thing? I set down my coffee slowly. What do you mean? Well, if Sarah had power of attorney, she could handle your affairs if something happened. Property transfers, medical decisions, it's just smart planning. Power of attorney? Legal document. Gives someone authority to act on your behalf. Very common for seniors. There it was. Derek's backup plan. If I wouldn't voluntarily sign over the deed, they'd have me declared incompetent and take it anyway. But Derek had forgotten something important about my background. That sounds complicated, I said carefully. Would I need a lawyer? Probably, but not expensive. Simple paperwork. After we hung up, I walked to my home office and looked at the wall Derek had been studying during his visits. My law degree from Yale, 1976, Connecticut Bar Association certificate, 35 years of practice awards from the Riverside County Real Estate Board. Did Derek think these were just decorations? That afternoon, James Bradford called from Riverside Trust Bank. Mr. Watson, your quarterly statement is ready. Would you like me to mail it, or... I'll pick it up, James. And can you do me a favor? If anyone calls asking about my accounts, anyone except Robert Mitchell, don't confirm I'm a customer. Sir, is everything all right? Family complications. Nothing illegal, just private. Understood completely. The bank statement told a story Derek would never expect. Margaret's life insurance, $400,000. My retirement account, $280,000. Checking and savings, $93,000. Total liquid assets, $773,000. Derek thought he was robbing a struggling widower. He was actually targeting a millionaire who happened to be grieving. But the real surprise was waiting in Robert Mitchell's office files. Robert, remember that property consulting work I did for Riverside Development in the 90s? Of course. You helped them navigate those zoning disputes. Did you know they made me a partner in 3 commercial properties? Robert pulled out a thick folder. The strip mall, the office complex, and the warehouse district. Your partnership shares are, let me see, worth approximately $400,000 at current market rates. I smiled for the first time in months. Derek's trying to steal an $850,000 house from someone worth $1.2 million. That's poetic justice, Nick. But money wasn't my real advantage. Knowledge was. That evening, I called my old colleague, Patricia Hernandez, at the county clerk's office. Patricia, I need a favor. Can you flag my property record? If anyone requests copies of my deed, I want to know immediately. Personal or official request? Personal. Family issues? Done. I'll call you if anyone comes asking. Next, I contacted Elena Rodriguez at Connecticut Legal Services. Elena, hypothetical question. If someone tried to forge property transfer documents, what would they need? Original deed, mainly. Notarized signatures. Proof of mental competency. Why? Academic curiosity. 3 days later, Patricia called back. Nick, someone requested copies of your property records. Young man 30s, said he was helping with estate planning for his father-in-law. Did he give a name? Derek Hamilton. Perfect. Derek was accelerating his timeline. That weekend, Sarah visited alone. Derek was working, she said. Dad, how are you feeling? Really? Some days better than others. Why? Derek's worried about you. We both are. You seem confused sometimes, asking the same questions repeatedly. I'd never asked the same question twice, but Derek needed that narrative. Do you think I'm losing my mind, Sarah? No, but grief affects people differently. Maybe you should see someone, a doctor, just to be sure you're okay. What kind of doctor? A neurologist. Someone who can evaluate your memory, cognitive function. There it was. Derek's real plan emerging. Get me diagnosed with cognitive decline, use that to justify taking control of my assets. But Sarah was my daughter. Before she was Derek's wife, she was the little girl who helped me study for the bar exam, reading flashcards at the kitchen table. Sarah, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you remember when you were 12, helping me prepare for that big case against Morrison Development? You won that case, saved the Hendersons from losing their farm. What was my closing argument strategy? She looked surprised. You always said the best lawyers let the evidence tell the story. Don't argue emotions, present facts. And what did I teach you about people who try to rush important decisions? Sarah's expression grew troubled. You said when someone pressures you to sign papers quickly, they're usually hiding something. We looked at each other across the kitchen table where she'd done homework while I prepared contracts. Dad, why are you asking me this? Just wondering if you remembered. But I could see doubt creeping into her eyes. Doubt about Derek's urgency. Doubt about his motives. My daughter was still in there somewhere, underneath Derek's manipulation. The question was, would she choose truth over convenience when the moment came? I was about to find out. The family Christmas party was Derek's biggest mistake. Sarah hosted it at their house December 15th. Extended family, neighbors, everyone Margaret and I had known for decades. Derek wanted witnesses for what he was planning to announce. I arrived early, bringing Margaret's famous chocolate pecan pie that I'd learned to make from her handwritten recipe. Derek met me at the door, unusually excited. Nicholas, great to see you. Come in, come in. How are you feeling? Good days and bad days, I replied, playing my role. Well, we have some news that might help with that. The living room filled slowly. Sarah's cousin Janet from Hartford, our neighbors Bob and Linda Chen, Dr. Martinez and his wife, old friends who'd attended Margaret's funeral just 8 months ago. Derek waited until everyone had drinks and appetizers. Then he clinked his fork against his beer bottle. Everyone, can I have your attention? Sarah and I wanted to share something important. The room quieted. Sarah looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with her necklace. As most of you know, Nicholas has been struggling since Margaret passed. Living alone in that big house, managing finances, keeping up with maintenance. It's a lot for anyone, especially someone dealing with grief. Murmurs of sympathy around the room. These people had known me for decades. Derek continued, his voice taking on a patronizing tone that made my skin crawl. Sarah and I have been researching ways to help. Legal strategies to protect Nicholas and the family legacy. We found a solution that benefits everyone. Dr. Martinez leaned forward. What kind of solution? Estate planning, tax avoidance. Nicholas is going to transfer his property to Sarah. Purely for financial protection, of course. He'll keep living there, same as always. The room grew quiet. I could see confused expressions. These weren't strangers Derek was addressing. They were Margaret's bridge partners, my former colleagues, people who'd known me since before Derek existed. Janet spoke first. Uncle Nick, is this something you want to do? Derek answered before I could. It's what any smart family would do. Nicholas understands the tax implications. Don't you, Nicholas? All eyes turned to me. This was Derek's moment of triumph. The confused old man publicly agreeing to hand over his life's work. Instead, I asked a simple question. Derek, can you explain exactly which tax code sections apply to interfamily property transfers? Derek's smile wavered. Well, it's complicated. Multiple sections, estate tax law, gift tax provisions, specifically which provisions. I'd have to look up the exact numbers. Dr. Martinez raised an eyebrow. Dr. Martinez had known me for 20 years. He'd seen me handle legal consultations in his office, draft contracts for medical equipment purchases, navigate complex insurance disputes. Nick, Dr. Martinez said carefully, you practiced real estate law for 3 decades. What do you think about Derek's proposal? The room went silent. Derek's face flushed red. That's exactly why we're concerned, Derek said quickly. Nicholas gets confused about complex topics now. Yesterday he asked me the same question 3 times about property taxes. I asked you about property taxes once, I said quietly. Last Tuesday, during dinner. You said $1,800 annually was too much for someone on a fixed income. See? You're confused about when... Derek, I interrupted, my voice calm but carrying the authority I'd used in courtrooms for 35 years. What's my property tax assessment for this fiscal year? Around $1,800, like I said. $18,500. You were off by a factor of 10. Bob Chen started laughing. Nick, you sound sharp as ever to me. Derek's face went from red to purple. This is exactly the problem. He's having lucid moments followed by confusion. It's textbook cognitive decline. Derek, Linda Chen said slowly, are you a doctor? I don't need to be a doctor to see, because, Linda continued, I'm a registered nurse. I've worked with dementia patients for 15 years. Nick seems perfectly coherent to me. The room dynamics shifted. These people weren't random witnesses Derek could manipulate. They were my community. They'd watched me handle legal cases, serve on town boards, manage complex neighborhood disputes. Sarah finally spoke. Maybe we should discuss this privately. No, Derek said firmly. This affects everyone. You're all family friends. You should know what's really happening here. He pulled out his briefcase again. More printed articles, more legal documents he'd downloaded from the internet. I've done months of research. Property transfer strategies, elder care planning, financial protection methods. This isn't some impulse decision. Dr. Martinez looked at the papers. Derek, this article is about California tax law. We're in Connecticut. Derek snatched the papers back. The principles are the same. Actually, Janet said quietly, they're not. I work in estate planning for Hartford Financial. California and Connecticut have completely different tax structures for property transfers. The room felt like air being sucked out of a balloon. Derek had invited these people to witness his expertise and validate his authority over my decisions. Instead, they were watching him reveal his incompetence. Look, Derek said desperately, the bottom line is simple. Nicholas can't maintain that property alone. He's already having problems with basic maintenance, financial management, even personal care. What problems specifically? Bob Chen asked. Derek pointed at me. Look at him. He's wearing the same shirt he wore last week. His yard is overgrown. Mail piling up everywhere. I looked down at my navy blue button-down. Clean, pressed, purchased 3 days ago at Macy's. Derek, I said quietly, this is a new shirt. You're getting confused about... It still has the price tag. I lifted my collar slightly. Sure enough, the Macy's tag was still attached. The room erupted in uncomfortable laughter. Derek's credibility was evaporating in real time, but he wasn't finished. Fine, maybe I got some details wrong, but the principle stands. Nicholas needs help, whether he admits it or not. Sarah and I are trying to protect him from making mistakes that could cost the family everything. What mistakes? Dr. Martinez asked. Financial decisions, legal contracts. He could sign away his assets to scammers, lose everything to medical bills, make choices that what, Derek? The voice came from the hallway. Everyone turned. Robert Mitchell stepped into the living room, removing his winter coat. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was terrible. Robert looked around the room. Did I miss something important? Derek went pale. Who are you? Robert Mitchell. I've been Nick's attorney and friend for 35 years. He looked at Derek with professional curiosity. And you must be the son-in-law I've heard about. The one asking all those interesting questions about property law. The room fell silent. Derek had just spent 20 minutes telling a room full of people that I was too confused to make legal decisions. Robert Mitchell, senior partner at Mitchell and Associates, was about to explain why Derek was wrong. Now, Robert said, settling into an armchair, what's this about Nick needing help with financial decisions? Derek's trap had become mine, and the net was closing fast. Derek broke into my house on December 20th at 2:17 in the morning. I was waiting. The motion sensors I'd installed triggered alerts on my phone the moment he entered through the back door. Silent alarms, no sounds to warn him, just electronic eyes recording everything. From my bedroom window, I watched his flashlight beam move through the kitchen, down the hallway toward my home office. Derek wore dark clothing and latex gloves. This wasn't impulsive desperation. This was premeditated theft. I called Detective O'Sullivan. "Patricia, it's Nicholas. He's here." "On our way. Stay in your bedroom. Lock the door." "Already done." Through the security camera app on my phone, I watched Derek jimmy the lock on my office door. He'd practiced this. The door opened smoothly, barely a sound. Derek moved straight to the safe behind my desk. He'd memorized the layout during his family visits, noted exactly where Margaret kept our important documents. He pulled out his phone, using its flashlight to illuminate the combination dial. 4 digits. Margaret's birthday, 0416, April 16th. The safe clicked open. Derek reached inside eagerly, searching for the property deed that would make him rich and leave me homeless. Instead, his hand touched the motion-activated camera I'd installed that afternoon. The UV powder exploded in a glittering cloud. Derek jerked backward, coughing and cursing as invisible powder coated his hands, face, and clothing. In normal light, he couldn't see anything. Under ultraviolet illumination, he would glow like a Christmas tree. But the real surprise was what wasn't in the safe. No property deed, no bank documents, no insurance papers, just a single manila envelope containing copies of Derek's business records, his debt notices from Alpine Commercial Bank, and printed screenshots of his internet searches for property transfer fraud and elder abuse legal loopholes. Derek stared at the papers, his glitter-covered hands shaking. That's when I turned on the lights. "Hello, Derek." He spun around, still clutching the evidence of his own financial crimes. Glitter sparkled on his face like disco ball confetti. "Nicholas, You were stealing my property deed to pay your debts to Alpine Commercial Bank. $400,000 due January 15th, or they foreclose on your equipment." Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "How did you—" "I'm a lawyer, Derek. Research is what lawyers do." Police sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Derek looked at the envelope in his hands, then at me, then at the safe he'd just burglarized. His face went from confusion to panic to desperate anger. "You set me up. You set yourself up. I just documented it. This is entrapment. You tricked me. I protected my property from a thief. There's a difference." Derek dropped the papers and moved toward me aggressively. "You crazy old man. You don't understand what you've done. I needed that money." "For your gambling debts?" Derek stopped cold. "What gambling debts?" I pulled out my phone, scrolling to a screenshot. "Mohegan Sun Casino. You've lost $67,000 there in the past 6 months. Want to see the credit card statements?" Derek's face went white. "How could you possibly—" "Because when someone tries to steal my house, I investigate them thoroughly." I held up another document. 3 more casinos. Foxwoods, Turning Stone, Atlantic City. You've been bleeding money faster than your construction business could earn it. The sirens stopped outside. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. "Derek Hamilton," I said calmly, "you're under arrest for attempted burglary, attempted fraud, and conspiracy to commit elder abuse." Detective O'Sullivan entered through the front door, her hand resting on her service weapon. "Mr. Watson, are you all right?" "Perfect, Patricia." The suspect is in my office, covered in UV powder, holding evidence of his own crimes. Patricia looked at Derek, who was indeed glowing with glitter under the overhead lights. "Sir, put your hands where I can see them." "This is insane," Derek shouted. "He's my father-in-law. This is a family dispute." "No," Patricia said, pulling out handcuffs. "This is breaking and entering. Turn around." As Patricia read Derek his rights, I called Sarah. "Dad, it's 2 a.m. What's wrong?" "Your husband just broke into my house to steal my property deed. He's being arrested." Silence. Then, what? Derek's been planning this for months. Gambling debts, business failure. He needed money fast. My house was his solution. "That's impossible. Derek wouldn't—" "Sarah, he's standing in my office right now, covered in glitter, while Detective O'Sullivan puts him in handcuffs. Would you like to speak with her?" More silence. Then the sound of Sarah crying. Dad, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about any gambling or... But you knew about the property transfer plan. He said it was for taxes, for protecting the family. The family Derek was protecting was himself. 20 minutes later, Sarah arrived in her pajamas and a winter coat. She found Derek in the back of a police cruiser, still sparkling with UV powder. Detective O'Sullivan showed her the evidence: Derek's internet searches, his casino records, his business debt notices, photos of him breaking into my house. Hamilton, did you have any knowledge of your husband's plan to steal your father's property? Sarah looked at me, then at Derek in the police car, then back at the evidence. I thought we were helping Dad with estate planning. Derek said he'd researched everything, that it was legal and beneficial for everyone. Did you know about his gambling? No. Did you know his business was failing? No. Did you know he owed $400,000 to Alpine Commercial Bank? No. Patricia nodded. Based on the evidence, Mrs. Hamilton appears to be another victim of the defendant's deception. As the police car pulled away with Derek inside, Sarah and I stood in my kitchen drinking coffee at 3 a.m. Dad, I'm so sorry. You were lied to, Sarah. That's not your fault. But I should have known. Should have seen the signs. Derek's good at lying. It's probably why his business failed. Sarah looked around the kitchen where she'd grown up, where Margaret had taught her to make Christmas cookies and helped with homework. Can you forgive me? There's nothing to forgive. You're my daughter. Derek was your husband. You trusted him. Was? I sipped my coffee. Sarah, Derek was planning to put me in a nursing home after stealing my house. He told you I was losing my mind so you'd go along with signing away my property. Do you really think that marriage can survive this? Sarah was quiet for a long time. Finally, she asked, Dad, how long have you known? 3 months. Why didn't you tell me? Because you had to see it for yourself. If I'd just accused him, you might have chosen Derek over me. Never. People choose security over truth every day, Sarah. I needed to know which one you'd pick. She reached across the table and took my hand. I pick truth. I pick family. I pick you. The glitter trap had worked perfectly. But the real trap was watching Derek destroy himself with his own greed. Some people mistake kindness for weakness. That mistake has consequences. Derek's arraignment was scheduled for December 23rd at Riverside County Court. I arrived early, wearing my best Navy suit and the Yale Law School tie Margaret had given me for our 10th anniversary. Judge Catherine Morrison presided. We'd worked together on zoning cases in the 80s. She knew my reputation. Derek sat at the defendant's table with a public defender named Kevin Walsh. Derek's face was clean now, but I'd brought enlarged photographs of him covered in glitter, reaching into my safe. The charges were read: breaking and entering, attempted theft, conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse. Derek pleaded not guilty to everything. Your Honor, Public Defender Walsh said, this is a family misunderstanding that escalated unnecessarily. My client was trying to help his elderly father-in-law with estate planning. Judge Morrison looked at the evidence photos. By breaking into his house at 2 a.m, my client believed he had permission to access those documents. Permission to commit burglary? District Attorney Rebecca Stone stood up. Your Honor, the evidence shows premeditated fraud. The defendant researched property transfer laws, gambling away business capital while planning to steal the victim's primary residence. Judge Morrison reviewed the file. Mr. Hamilton, you owe $400,000 to Alpine Commercial Bank? Derek's lawyer answered, Your Honor, financial difficulties don't justify these serious charges. No, but they establish motive. Judge Morrison looked directly at Derek. You research property law for months. Convince your wife that her father is mentally incompetent, then break into his house searching for documents worth $850,000. That's not estate planning. That's theft. Derek finally spoke. Your Honor, Nicholas Watson has been acting confused, forgetful. My wife and I were concerned about his ability to make sound financial decisions. Mr. Hamilton, do you have medical documentation of Mr. Watson's alleged cognitive decline? Well, no, but have you consulted with Mr. Watson's physician? Not directly, but are you qualified to diagnose cognitive impairment? Derek's face reddened. Anyone could see he was struggling. Judge Morrison cut him off. Mr. Hamilton, I've known Nicholas Watson professionally for 20 years. He appeared before this court hundreds of times, handled complex property disputes, and maintained an impeccable legal reputation. Does he seem cognitively impaired to you today? Everyone turned to look at me. I stood up slowly, respectfully. Your Honor, if I may address the court? Please do, Mr. Watson. Derek Hamilton's gambling debts total $113,000 across 4 casinos. His business owes Alpine Commercial Bank $400,000 in equipment loans, due January 15th. His company has been sued 3 times this year for breach of contract. He researched property transfer fraud on the internet for 3 months, convinced my daughter I was mentally incompetent, and broke into my house to steal documents worth $850,000. I paused, letting the numbers sink in. These aren't the actions of someone concerned about my welfare. These are the actions of someone desperate to steal my life savings before his own financial crimes catch up with him. Judge Morrison nodded. Mr. Watson, do you have documentation of these claims? I handed District Attorney Stone a thick folder. Bank records, casino statements, business loan documents, and security camera footage of the defendant breaking into my home. Derek's lawyer looked panicked. Your Honor, we haven't had time to review. You'll have time during discovery, Judge Morrison said sharply. Based on the evidence presented, I'm setting bail at $200,000. Derek's face went white. Your Honor, I don't have $200,000. I'm aware of that, Mr. Hamilton. Your financial records are part of the evidence. Derek turned to Sarah, who was sitting in the gallery. Sarah, you have to help me. Post bail. I'll pay you back. Sarah looked at her husband, then at me, then back at Derek. No. What? I said no, Derek. I won't post your bail. But I'm your husband. You're a criminal. You lied to me about everything. Your gambling, your debts, your plan to put my father in a nursing home. Derek's voice rose desperately. I was protecting our future. By stealing from my father? Judge Morrison banged her gavel. Mr. Hamilton, you'll remain in custody pending trial. Court is adjourned. As guards led Derek away, he shouted over his shoulder. This isn't over, Nicholas. You set me up. I'll prove it. I watched him disappear through the courthouse doors. District Attorney Stone approached me afterward. Mr. Watson, that was impressive preparation. Most victims don't bring this level of documentation. Most victims aren't retired attorneys. True. What made you so thorough? Derek thought grief made me weak. I wanted to show him what thorough preparation actually looks like. Outside the courthouse, Sarah and I walked to our cars in silence. Finally, she asked, What happens now? Derek will probably plead guilty to avoid trial. He'll serve 18 months, maybe 2 years. His construction business is finished, and your marriage is over, Sarah finished. I'm filing for divorce. Are you sure? Dad, he was going to put you in a nursing home and steal your house. He lied to me about everything. How could I stay married to someone like that? I hugged my daughter in the courthouse parking lot, both of us crying for different reasons. Derek had wanted to steal my house. Instead, he'd destroyed his own life and lost his wife. Some lessons are expensive. Derek's cost him everything, but I had my daughter back, and that was worth more than any house. Derek Hamilton's story made the Hartford Courant 3 days after Christmas. Local businessman charged an elder fraud scheme ran on page 4 with Derek's mugshot and a photo of my house. The article detailed his gambling debts, failed business, and the glitter trap that caught him red-handed. The phone calls started immediately. Margaret's Bridge Club friends checking to make sure I was all right. Neighbors expressing shock at Derek's behavior. Former legal colleagues congratulating me on outmaneuvering a would-be thief. But the real consequences were just beginning. Alpine Commercial Bank foreclosed on Hamilton Construction LLC on January 8th, exactly 1 week before Derek's payment deadline. His equipment was auctioned off to pay creditors. The business that Derek had built over 10 years disappeared in a single afternoon. Derek's construction crew, 8 good men who'd worked for him faithfully, lost their jobs. 2 of them called me, surprisingly. Mr. Watson, we had no idea what Derek was planning, said Tommy Rodriguez, Derek's former foreman. If we'd known he was targeting you, you couldn't have known, Tommy. Derek fooled everyone. Still feels wrong, working for someone who'd rob his own family. The Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection launched their own investigation after reading the newspaper coverage. Derek's contractor's license was suspended, pending review of his business practices. 3 more families came forward with complaints about unfinished work and missing deposits. Derek hadn't just been gambling away business income, he'd been stealing from customers to fund his casino trips. Sarah filed for divorce on January 15th. Connecticut's no-fault divorce laws meant she could dissolve the marriage without Derek's consent, especially given his criminal charges. Derek's lawyer tried to claim Sarah should be responsible for half his gambling debts as marital obligations. Judge Morrison rejected that argument immediately. Mrs. Hamilton was clearly deceived about her husband's financial activities, the judge ruled. She bears no responsibility for debts incurred through fraud and concealment. Sarah got to keep their house, which she immediately listed for sale. "I can't live there anymore, Dad. Every room reminds me of Derek's lies." She moved back to her childhood bedroom in my house temporarily, the same room where she'd done homework while I prepared for court cases. But the most satisfying consequence happened in February. Derek's cellmate at Hartford Correctional was a man named Carlos Mendoza, serving time for credit card fraud. Carlos had lost his family home to a predatory lending scheme that targeted elderly Hispanic homeowners. When Carlos learned what Derek had tried to do to me, he made Derek's incarceration significantly more uncomfortable. "Seems like word gets around in there about guys who prey on old folks," Detective O'Sullivan told me during a follow-up interview. "Derek's having a rough time." Derek's trial was scheduled for March, but his public defender recommended a plea agreement. The evidence was overwhelming: security camera footage, financial records, documented premeditation. Derek pleaded guilty to attempted burglary and fraud. Judge Morrison sentenced him to 3 years in state prison, with possibility of parole after 18 months. "Mr. Hamilton," Judge Morrison said during sentencing, "you targeted a grieving widower who trusted you as family. You researched ways to steal his home and planned to have him declared incompetent. These crimes show calculated cruelty toward a vulnerable population." Derek stood silently as she continued. "Elder abuse is not just illegal, it's morally reprehensible. Your sentence reflects the seriousness of betraying family trust for financial gain." Derek was led away in handcuffs again. This time Sarah didn't attend the hearing. The final consequence was personal. Word spread quickly through Riverside Heights about Derek's scheme. My neighbors began checking on elderly residents more frequently. Property lawyers started warning clients about family members who showed sudden interest in estate planning. Derek's crime had backfired completely. Instead of making me vulnerable, it made the entire community more protective of its senior residents. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting criminals destroy themselves. Derek had wanted my house. Instead, he lost his freedom, his business, his wife, and his reputation. The math worked out perfectly. Spring came early to Connecticut that year. By April, Margaret's rose garden was blooming again, despite my amateur attempts at gardening. Sarah had her own apartment now, a nice place in West Hartford, close to her pharmaceutical sales territory. We had dinner every Sunday, just like when she was growing up, except now she helped cook instead of me doing everything. Derek was still in prison, scheduled for release in October with good behavior. Sarah had heard through mutual friends that he'd been taking anger management classes and working in the prison library. "Do you think he's really changed?" she asked over coffee one Sunday afternoon. "People can change," I said carefully, "but the real question is whether you're willing to risk finding out." "I'm not. The divorce was final last month." "Good." We sat quietly watching birds at Margaret's old feeder. "Dad, I need to ask you something." "What's that?" "How long would you have let Derek's plan go on if he hadn't actually broken in?" I considered the question. "Not long, maybe another week, but I needed him to commit a crime, not just plan one." "Were you ever scared?" "Of Derek? No. Derek's a coward who preys on people he thinks are weaker than him. Once I proved I wasn't weak, he had no power over me." "But what if he'd been violent?" Then Detective O'Sullivan would have arrived to find me defending myself with my service revolver. I'm 71, Sarah, not helpless. She laughed, a sound I'd missed during the months when Derek was poisoning her mind against me. You know what the strangest part is? Sarah said. What's that? Derek kept saying he was protecting our future, but he destroyed it instead. Greed makes people stupid. Always has, always will. Do you forgive him? Forgiveness is for people who feel sorry for what they did. Derek's only sorry he got caught. Sarah finished her coffee and helped me clear the dishes. Dad, I want you to know something. What's that? I'm proud of how you handled this. You could have just called the police when you first suspected him. Instead, you gave Derek every chance to stop himself. Some people have to learn consequences the hard way. As Sarah left that evening, she hugged me in the doorway, where Margaret used to wave goodbye to visitors. See you next Sunday? Wouldn't miss it. After she left, I walked through the house Derek had tried to steal. Every room held memories Derek could never understand or appreciate. This wasn't just property to me, it was home. Some boundaries are worth defending, some fights are worth having, and sometimes the best trap is simply letting criminals reveal who they really are. If you're watching this, I hope you never have to set boundaries with your own family. But if you do, remember this. Respect isn't negotiable, and trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. Have you ever had to make hard choices to protect what matters most to you? Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up when everything's on the line.